Give you a little more volume on your microphone, please. Can you hear that better? Much better.
Yes.
No, I've never been anywhere near.
Well, welcome. Have you done very many conventions before in the States?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Have you done very many conventions before?
I used to do about sort of 6 a year at one time, and then I started doing more in Europe. So I think I did a couple last year in the States, and then this is the only one that I've done this year.
So I'd like to start like right around the beginning of your career. It looks like you were doing film and television pretty much at the same time. Did you have a different approach to doing film than you did television?
Well, when I started out, I thought that I was just going to be a stage actor, and that all I do is theatre work, and I didn't think I would make a single film or do even a single TV series. That I would just do plays on stage, and it'd be mainly classical plays, and that would be it. I didn't even want to do any films or any television. And everything in my life that's happened has all happened by accident. And it's an accident of fate that I'm here. But it all sort of stemmed back. I was at university at Oxford, and I'd done about 5 plays in which I played reasonable sized roles. And I was suddenly signed up by the Royal Shakespeare Company to go and join them at Stratford-on-Avon without me lifting a finger. I auditioned for them, they turned me down. I went and did an audition with Vanessa Redgrave, and they turned me down. And then the next thing, they rang me up. I still had 2 terms to stay at university, and they offered me a long-term contract. So I went straight, I sat my last exam on a Wednesday morning at Oxford. I got on my motorbike, I drove to Stratford, and I was rehearsing at Stratford with Vanessa Redgrave that same day. And that was the beginning of my stage, television, acting, movie career. Wow. And I started right at the very, very top, and it took me only 2 years to work my way right to the bottom.
So how did the transition from stage to film and television take place? Was it a conscious decision, or it just came to you?
I mean, I honestly never thought I was going to be. This sounds very emotional. I've never ever thought that I had the looks to be in movies. I mean, the character actors, I could probably do. And just to sort of emphasize that, I did a film called The Ghoul. It was the first leading part I had in a movie. And I knew that my agent had been to see it. And she phoned me up the same day that she'd been to see it, and she's asked me to come into her office the next day. And I thought, wow, I've made it. Yeah. She's seen the film, and Hollywood is beckoning. And I went in the next day, and she called me to her office, and she said, I saw your movie yesterday. And I said, yeah. And she said, have you ever thought of having your teeth fixed? Not that you were good, bad, indifferent, or anything, but have you ever thought of having your teeth fixed? So I had that tooth done.
Wonderful.
So I want to just cut to the chase and ask you about Zombie Fleshes, the zombie films, the Italian horror films you did. Working with like Lucio, Fulci, and other Italian directors, was there ever any kind of language barrier, especially if you're working like with an all-Italian crew, all-Italian director? Was there much of a language problem?
Fulci spoke English after a fashion. He spoke the same sort of English as he does in the film when he plays the sort of newspaper editor. I didn't really get on that well with Lucio. We weren't sort of friends. I was friendly with Martino, whom I admired because, apart from having, you really wouldn't believe it, but apart from having a career as a film director, he'd also been a boxer. And if any of you go to Rome and go into the place where they held the Rome Olympics in 36, whatever it is, there's a statue of a boxer, and that boxer is the director of Zombie Holocaust.
Wow.
He was a bit of a bully, more of a bully than Fulci was. And then the last director spoke very, very good English, and he was an absolute sweetheart. He was one of the nicest men you know. Luigi Cozzi. He's a lovely guy.
How did those films come about? Did you actively audition for those, or did they come out to you and say, hey, you would be really great, or was it an agent that night?
I did a TV series in the UK called Survivors, And Survivors in Italian was called Sopravvissuti. And the first series of that was a huge success. And it was on the back of that they asked me, I was doing a play and I got a call from my agent and she said, there's an Italian film company, they want you to play a leading role in one of their movies, they don't want to test you, they don't want to even meet you, but it would be a good thing if you just met Lucio Fulci before you started filming. Because I was due to start filming within 10 days of finishing this. It came totally out of the blue. And they said you will be paid $7,000, $1,000 a week. You'd get $1,000 a week living allowance. They would fly my girlfriend, partner, first class to whichever of the 3 locations. That's New York, the Dominican Republic or Rome, first class. And I would be treated like a prince. All I had to do was say yes. So as you can imagine, it took me about half a second to say yes. And I say within 10 days I was on a plane to New York, and the next day filming on Broadway with teaser without permission to be in New York.
Wow. So that's just a real whirlwind of events. So
it happened really quickly and it ended really quickly. And I didn't know, I sort of felt that it was going to end after my third film. But the first one was completely unbelievable.
How do you think, you've dealt with a lot of different directors and a lot of different styles. Is there a certain style that Italian directors have that, say, English or American directors have? Do they have something, a different mindset for film?
I've never worked with an American director. Oh, well, I was at Eagles there, the American director. Yeah, he was the one in the film. I was playing a German officer. And I had one scene with Richard Burton, Clint Eastwood came across and said something, but he suddenly appeared one day and came down. First of all, they dug a hole in the snow for me to stand in, because Richard Burton complained I was too tall. And they didn't make Clint Eastwood stand in any holes, but they made me stand in it. And then he came down after I'd done one scene and he said a German accent. And I knew I was doing a very bad German accent. But I said, yes, it's a South German accent. And he accepted that, sort of face value. But my children think that I'm playing this German officer with a Scottish accent. But the thing about Americans, the Italians, as opposed to anyone else I've worked with in films, is basically the crew. Because the crew just work like madmen. They never stop. They do everything they possibly can to make your life easy. When they change lights, they do it in minutes. In London, they take hours, sometimes days, in changing sets. They just sort of bend over backwards to get the work done as quickly as possible. They're being paid less money. Their breaks are sort of minimal, and all they seem to have is one cup of one of these, these tiny little things of coffee you have. That's all they have, and then they went straight back to work. They never complain. They just get on with things, and that doesn't happen, as far as I'm concerned, in British films or American films that I've been involved in. It's the crew.
So being with that kind of a crew, with that kind of almost like clockwork, did it seem like the films were made more like in a production line and more than a piece of art?
Yeah, I mean, you know that they worked everything out, that they've got exactly the right number of weeks of shooting. But as with all films, you have producers who can make the sun shine every time they appear on set and say, why aren't you working? Why aren't you going? So the first film, the producer was around all the time, and the last film, the producer was around all the time. And I say they want things done their way. And one day, the producer of Contamination, this is when we were in Colombia in South America, appeared on set, and he addressed the director, Luigi Cozzi, in front of all the actors and all the crew, and said that if he was not more positive, he was going to break his legs. When you're working under that sort of pressure, I mean, you sort of feel that the mafia are going to be the next to sort of get you, and you just get on.
Wow.
So there were some of the filmings were like in South America, some in the Caribbean, I believe. Were those, you're in some place really nice, a very nice tropical area. Did you enjoy any of that, or was it still, I'm here to work, I can't really enjoy my surroundings?
Well, I mean, you like to enjoy it, but one of the problems is continuity. So if you go out looking, say as I look now, and they film you now, and you then go out in the sun for 3 hours, you get either red or brown, and you just look stupid for the next scene as you go. And one person, I won't say who it was, in the middle of shooting one of these films, went on a holiday with family and came back a totally different colour to what that actor was before they went. And the producers and directors went ballistic, and they wrote a letter to this person saying that they were going to tell everyone in Italy that this person had done the wrong thing, and that she would probably never work again in Italy. And I said, you can't send a letter. Can I suggest that I write the letter? So I wrote a letter to this actor saying that this actor had done something which nearly destroyed the film. Don't do it again, because you mucked up so much, it nearly cost us all film money. And that actor said to me that same evening that they'd got the letter. I had the sweetest letter from the producers. It wasn't from them, it was from the producers.
For you, what was one of the most memorable films, something that you're most proud of that you've done, that you kind of look back on and go, that was something that...
Well, it wouldn't be a film. I mean,
a television or stage?
I am not impressed by any of the work I do in these films. And what I honestly love about these films are the reviews. And the cruder they are and the more critical they are, and hopefully the funnier they are, the better. So, and I don't think I've ever had really sort of good reviews for any of these films. But I started by having a review which said Roger Moore lookalike. Then I had a review that described him as being a second-rate Roger Moore lookalike. And then the last one I had was balding, middle-aged Roger Moore lookalike. That's the sort of review I like. And my favourite review of all time was actually for Zombie Holocaust. And I loved it. And it said, when they've run out of ideas in the Italian schlock industry, Ian Mcculloch listlessly wanders the earth, looking like a man in need of a beer and a shag. I thought that was really... And I wrote to the guy who wrote it saying, I thought it was the best review I've ever had.
Wonderful.
Then why do you think that has such a cult following? Why do you think people love these films? They go, myself inclusive, people always go back to these Italian zombie films, the ones that you read. I know people that have seen these films multiple times. What do you think about it that they see that you don't see?
Well, the magical thing about this film is that we made it in 1979, and now in 2025. For some reason or other, and I don't know what it is, but I'm glad for it, is that they all have an affection for it. I don't think that they sort of love it necessarily, but that's 3 generations of cinema makers have watched this film in their millions. It has made a huge amount of money, and it has gone through the first sort of DVDs, to sort of Laserdisc, Blu-rays, 4Ks. I mean, and it's non-stop. I did a convention in Germany 6 weeks ago, and Arrow had just brought out a new limited edition of Zombie Flesh Eaters, which sold out in days. The first edition, they had to redo it. And they did a special edition of it for the convention, which I think was only just under 1,000, and that went in minutes.
Wow.
I mean, people it's a great, it's a stupid, silly story, but it's photographed beautifully. The acting is strong enough to hold up all the silliness of it. It has the most fantastic effects. And to me, the star of the film is Janetta De Rossi, who does the special effects. I never expected that I would do a film where nearly 50 years later, people would still be buying it anew. And I don't know, it's the people here out front who are old enough have got more than one copy, and they've gone through all these things. I mean, I have copies, but I've never been able to afford buying machines that play 4K or Blu-rays. So they're available for sale.
See, there's something, another thing I really think is great about a lot of the Italian horror movies is the music that they use.
Yes.
A lot of it's very lush. Sometimes they use a band called Goblin. Sometimes they use really lush music. Do you have any comment on that, or you just think it's just another component that Italian composers have a master of?
Forgive me for saying it, when I heard the music first of all, I thought it was crap. I thought, why don't they have normal film music that I'm used to? That moves, that has the right mood.
It is.
I have since gone on record now saying, apart from Ginetta De Rossi and Lucio Fulci, the other star of this movie is Fabio Frizzi.
Yes! Amen.
And Fabio Frizzi has become a dear personal friend of mine.
Wonderful.
I only met him 3 years ago. I was a surprise guest at one of his conventions in Wales, where they show the movie and he plays the music. And I sat next to a lady in the front row in the dark. He wasn't supposed to know I was there. And I said to her, have you seen this before? She said, yeah, a couple of times. It turned out to be his wife. But I made a film 2 years ago called Witches of the Sands, which it hasn't come out yet. The man who starred in it was a stand-in, an art teacher. He lost all his money. He lost his wife, his family, his house, his friends. He crowdfunded it all. He wrote it all. He plays the leading role. He produced it. He directed it. He chose the locations. He's in charge of all the finances. To say he lost absolutely everything.
Oh dear.
He made it 2 years ago. And last November, they had the wrap party. It was finally finished. And the sad thing for me, because I thought I might soon be joining us, the first that he read out were the in memoriams of all the people who died in the time between the stars and where it got to.
Oh, wow.
But I haven't got there yet. But I say, I did this movie, and one of my songs, and I asked Fabio to do the arrangement with his band in Rome. So he's done that. He's made it so beautiful. And then I had my voice recorded in memory. And it's put together. And if the film ever comes out, it'll be that. Other than that, it's a very miserable song, and I think it'll mainly be sung at funerals.
So you write, hearing this correctly, you write music as well?
Yeah, I used to be a folk singer of sorts.
Wow.
I was a Decca recording artist. You can download, it costs no money at all. If you put my name in, it's Down by the River or Come On Home, you can download my first ever record. I was signed up because I wrote a song, an anti-Beatles song. Because when the Beatles first came out, I couldn't stand it. They were just so noisy. So I wrote this anti-Beatles song. Decca had turned the Beatles down. So I was signed up by the man who turned the Beatles down. And they thought that this satirical song would poke fun at them. When the song was about to come out, the Beatles started suing others who were mocking them. And so Decca said, we daren't do that. And they put out my song, folk song, let's say. I then sang this on British TV, BBC, and the producer rang me up the next day and said that they'd had more letters and phone calls about this anti-Beatles song than any other song that had been on their program.
That's
in
wonderful.
10 years. She didn't say whether they were good or bad.
Yeah, it's like it got attention. What was the name of the song, if I could ask?
It was called What on Earth Are Beatles? What on Earth Are Beatles? What are Beatles for? What they use the shiny back wings and crawled around on the floor. I can't twist and I can't shout, I open my mouth and the teeth fall out. My hair's gone grey and I've been this way since some form let the Beatles. But I also had a very brief career. I was the lead singer in a group, which sadly, when I mentioned, no one's ever heard of me 10 years after.
Oh, yeah. Whoa.
Alvin Lee. I was the lead singer and
You're
I was a
kidding.
guitarist. And I have to say,
Wow.
that lasted 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
It was a play in the West End, and I was supposed to be the leader of a band. And they imported a band from Nottingham, who they weren't called 10 years after, they were called Alvin Lee's 4 or whatever. The show folded after 6 weeks. We did one TV show, singing the music from the thing. Alvin unplugged my guitar so that no one would hear me play the guitar. If he could have unplugged my microphone, he would have unplugged the microphone. They were 4 sweet little boys, really nice. they joined a group called the Ivy League. I subsequently found that the Ivy League had in fact backed me on that first Decca record. I didn't know, they weren't called the Ivy League at the time. They then came to America, they went touring, and then those of you that know them went to Woodstock and did the most fantastic solo performance by Alvin Lee that's probably ever been heard.
Wow.
And I used to think they were heavy rock metal, but Alvin Lee loved blues. The blues, if you've ever heard that song, I think George Harrison is playing on it as well. It is the most beautiful, beautiful song.
I am glad I asked that question.
That's incredible.
Is there any footage of that?
Just that TV show.
Would it
But
be
I also wrote a song which was translated in French. That's been on 6 records. I wrote the song in 1964. The records were made in 67. And the song was sung by the revolting students in the Paris Student Rebellion of 67, 66.
Wow.
The 6 versions of this song were put out in France. And until just before I came up here, I found super good machines on my smartphone. I managed to get Google and I got the song and I heard it for the first time in over 50 years.
Wow.
That was amazing. So, do you consider yourself more? I mean, it's such a great balance, musician and actor. It seems like you really put your toes in pretty good on both of those.
I don't know that I'm a musician, and I write songs. Now, I have a song with Tiger Woods. Do any of you play golf?
Well, I mean, Tiger Woods, though.
So I have a song with Tiger Woods, which I hope he will mention, which is being recorded when I get back to school.
Wow.
I hope it's in time for his 50th birthday.
Wow.
Do you have a home studio, or do you go into a studio?
No, I did a recording, but you know Avon Press, who do comic versions of the Fulci films.
Wow.
They sent me a voice recorder to do the thing I recorded for them. So I record things on that. I recorded on my phone. I sent the first one to Rome, and the other one I've sent to Salerno to get it orchestrated.
So I got to ask you, with this rich history, are you working on any memoirs? Are you doing any writing about all this?
I can't remember things. When I go shopping, I have to write things down. Just driving to the airport, I was worried I forgot my photographs, my glasses, my pills, myself. And when I was doing I had this review saying balding, middle-aged thing. I bought myself a wig for Zombie Holocaust, and I left it behind. And when I came back and finished filming in Rome, had 2 days off in London, and I left my wig in London. And I had to say when I got there, because I didn't dare own up to just forget it, because they didn't have a hairdresser, I refused to take my wig away. So if you look at the New York scenes, all the shots is from the ground upwards, so they don't see this.
Well, I lost my wig in London. Could have been another anti-Beatles song.
Didn't happen at the time. It's a sad day when you're playing sort of Jubilees and someone taps you on the shoulder and says, I was watching you play from the circle, and you can see people, and I had no idea. Bad day.
Would you mind getting a few questions from the audience?
Take any questions.
There's a microphone right down front if anybody has a question. I know you do. This is quite a nice thing having you here. Thank you.
Hello, and what was your reaction to not only the popularity of the film in Europe, but also here in North America?
It's been, the thing about Italian films is they pre-sell everything, because they know that they've got a limited audience, and so they make as much of their money back in pre-production before they've even started to film. And I think that they'd sold to America, they certainly sold the South American things, the Japanese things as well. I just presumed this film, the first one, was just going to disappear without trace.
Wow.
It didn't have good reviews. And in all honesty, although I know it wasn't the same here in the States, it was the video nasty debates, beginning by Mary Woodhouse, which sort of gave it the notoriety, which sort of kicked it on. But if you look at the figures, I'm here obviously because this is a Romero convention, but there's been a sort of battle in different ways between Fulci zombies and Romero zombies. I mean, I'm here because of the fans, obviously, kept his legacy alive. I'm here because of this wall, which is an iconic building, which they're obviously putting down. I read that New York Times article where they shamelessly didn't even mention Romero, didn't mention any of his zombie films, just said there was a museum and had a picture of it. And in that picture, actually, I think there's the zombie, the worm-eyed zombie in the background. I mean, I thought it was disgraceful. Someone obviously hadn't done their homework. But I said, it's you, it's this wall, and of course it's George Romero. So there's been this battle. Fulci zombies, Romero's. I mean, I shouldn't say it here, but I actually think, I'm afraid, that Fulci's winning slightly.
Yeah.
Because of the music.
Yeah.
You have a question? Just head right over. There's a microphone.
Yeah. What was it like?
But I also have to say, I wouldn't be here. People didn't love this film. You just don't expect it. And when you're an actor and you don't act, you might do little bits, but it's a passion you don't expect. So it's absolutely fantastic. And yesterday and today, people come from everywhere. I mean, 10 hours driving is the furthest ever. And a couple of years ago, I did a convention in Chicago, and someone had come from Tampa Bay.
Wow.
And it was his wife. It was their 7th wedding anniversary. I mean, that someone should like a film that much as opposed to his wife and family, and come all that way just to see me. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm touched and flattered and humbled by it. I mean, it's amazing. In Italy, nobody cares about Fulci. There are no film horror conventions in Italy. No one celebrates Fulci. No one celebrates any of the films that he's done.
Wow.
Germany adore it. I mean, I can do 3 or 4 conventions in Germany a year, and exactly the same number of people turn up. And in fact, the last one I went to was even bigger than the ones I've been before. And 2 weeks after I did that one, the guy who plays the zombie, Ottaviano Dell'Acqua, is going to another German convention. It is amazing.
Real quick, I just want to ask, when did you first start doing conventions? Did that the real eye-opener that these films are really embedded in the horror lore? Just their...
I was asked, the first thing was Phil Lustig, Blue Underground, came to England for the 25th anniversary and did recording. That was the first time, that was 25, it was about 2005 or something. That was the first time I'd ever seen the film, and I'd seen it, I was watching it from behind the screen, and as the film went on, I remembered an anecdote, so I said, well, in that scene, and turned away. So I didn't see the whole film, so that was the first time. I first saw it in a local community centre near my home in Scotland, but I was invited to it wasn't a convention, but it was somewhere outside London, and I had no idea what to expect, but I wore a suit and a tie, I signed autographs, I didn't charge any money whatsoever. And then I was asked to a convention in London, which Catriona McCall and David Warbeck attended, and I remember being absolutely terrified because the room was full of men. They were all overweight. They were all wearing, looking around the room, they were all wearing black leather, and they all had various bits of metal hanging out from various parts of their face. And I'm afraid, I'm wondering whether I've come to the right place. But everything's got better sense.
Just curious, because the first thing that...
But then the whole group before it was started coming to conventions in America. That was Richard Johnson, Ottaviano Dell'Acqua, Al Tribe, and they were always fun. And they were only spoiled by the fact that those 3 all misbehaved when we came in. And when we went out to eat, in whatever the restaurant was, they insisted on singing their national anthems very, very loud, regardless of how full the restaurant was. And if are any Italians out front, any of the Italians? I mean, the Italian, you're Italian, forgive me. The Italian national anthem isn't very exciting, or tuneful, and it goes on and on for hours and hours and hours. It is not very simple. To hear Richard Johnson singing the English national anthem is also not very good. But no, we were never asked to leave. I just found them embarrassing. I kept very, very quiet. But they were all three of those were very, very naughty in all manner of ways, and I wish I could have been like them. But I'm afraid I was a little too British and uptight.
Let's get to your question. I'm very sorry I sidetracked.
Oh, no, it's fine. What was it like throwing the Molotov?
Nice and loud.
What was it like throwing the Molotov cocktails in Zombie at the end? You know, that's what was it like filming that? You know?
As long as you know you're not going to hit it, it's fun.
Yeah.
But I say I was in the army and I learned to throw grenades, and then I became an officer, and I had to train people to throw grenades.
Wow.
And if the grenade doesn't blow up, you've got to go and find it and blow it up, and that isn't much fun. So that wasn't nice to do. And I remember there was one private soldier who threw his hand grenade, it didn't go off, and he started laughing because he knew I had to go and find it until I told him that he had to come and blow it up. So throwing those things, I just get worried when I'm at home because I say I've got a farm in Scotland.
Wow.
And I've got an awful lot of dead trees which I sort of chop down, and when I start burning them, I sadly find I'm burning down the trees that are still standing. So I'm fairly wary of fire. And I have also to say, with all modesty, that I did train as a fireman, as a camp fireman. I was fire officer of my regiment in the army, and a very, very bad one. And we had one fire while I was there, and my trained team was so poor that we had to call in the German fire brigade to put it out.
Wow. Thanks.
Here we go. Another question right down the middle. Nice and loud. I'm sorry. There we go.
I think I first saw you in a film called Mcculloch, and you worked with Pete Cushing and John Hood. What was that like?
What was it like working on the Google? Peter Cushing, right?
Yeah, Peter Cushing and John Hood. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was the first leading part in a movie I had ever had. It was produced by, forgive me again, also Schick, who persuaded his much celebrated father, Freddie Francis, to do the cinematography. So it looks absolutely fantastic. The cast was absolutely brilliant. But the happiest, funniest day of my acting life was a day when I was stuck in a little caravan above a chalk pit with John Hurt and Dan Meaden, who was an English actor who was in it. And all we did, we weren't used on the film that day, all we did was gossip, tell dirty stories, foul stories, libel stories about other actors and actresses. And we just had so much fun that day. I mean, sadly, John Hurt isn't around. But I only admire two English actors, my contemporaries. Many of them are knighted, many of them I work with. The only two actors, English actors, that I have admiration for were John Hurt, who I thought was absolutely brilliant, and the other was an actor called Derek Jacobi, who doesn't do very well. The others, they're all successful, but they're the others. But I love doing it because of basically John Hurt. And I knew Peter Cushing. I had lunch with him in his home in Whitstable. I mean, I wasn't friends with him, but he was probably about the sweetest man you could ever meet. He couldn't be more gentleman, more kind, more thoughtful, more unselfish. And before that, I knew that he was a fantastic stage actor. And at one time in Britain, they thought that he was going to be an actor who would take over from Laurence Olivier. And he got stuck, obviously financially, it was brilliant, but he got stuck doing these movies. But what's bizarre now, and I didn't know it, is that his voice has been bought by the producer of The Good. So if anyone wants to use Peter Cushing's voice for voiceovers or reverses, they have to use this Freddie Francis' son, whatever it's called. And I didn't know you could do things like this. It was shocked me. It's part of modern life. People buy your voices.
Wow.
And I guess after that, you did probably the most famous TV series in Britain, which was Survivors. I don't know if anyone else has watched that. It's an amazing series.
I did you ever see a TV series called Colditz over here? I mean, I was having a really rough time as an actor. I was thinking of emigrating to Canada, God knows why. Not because of Canada, but because I didn't know anybody there. And then my agent said, you've got an interview with the BBC. It's a series called Colditz. You're a man who goes in as a prisoner, and he's the sort of character who was head boy of a school. He was captain of every sport. Everybody loved him at the school. They put him on a pedestal. They couldn't have done more for him, than his own parents, because they loved him so much. He was the ideal public schoolboy. Go in and try and be like that. So I went in for the interview with the director, and I was as nice as I think I wore my old school blazer, and it had head boy, captain of rugby and cricket on the side blazer pocket, and I was as nice as could be. And at the end of it, the interview, he pushed the script towards me, and he said, "Well, the part's yours. There's the script. Take it away, read it. If you like it, the part's yours." And I looked at it, and it wasn't the same title as the title I was coming up with, and it was written by a different writer. And it turned out that the part was for a cold-blooded shit whom everybody hated. So I did something bizarre in that interview that worked. Anyway, it was the best television part I ever had.
Wow.
And they said, "Look, when this comes out, you won't be going to Canada. The phone will never stop ringing." And it came out, and the phone never rang for a week, and then it never stopped ringing. I had offer after. I did a TV series in Scotland. I did a pilot for a TV series in Scotland, and then I did the Ghoul, and then I sat out of the blue. I was offered one of the leading parts in this TV series called Survivors, which ran for three series, 33 episodes. I wrote 3 of them.
Wow.
They had, it doesn't matter really over here in America, but they had top viewing figures of 10 million people a week, which was in those days pretty amazing for a drama being shown on a Wednesday night at 10 past 8. It was, the first series was absolutely fantastic, and because of that first series, I got the offer to do Zombi flesh eaters. And when I went to Italy to do it, I was treated like a prince by the public. I was mobbed in St. Peter's. I had to run out of St. Peter's in central Rome being chased. I say mobbed, there were about 30 girls chasing me, but honestly, I ran out. I was mobbed on the beach at Latina when we were on vacation. I went back for the second series, second film, just after they showed the second series. Nobody talked to me.
Wow.
Nobody invited me into their home. I was never mobbed again. And Italy didn't take the third series because the second series was so bad. But I made my mark with the first, so I went with it.
You also had one of the best roles in the Professionals. Professionals, the TV series. You were loading.
Yeah, I had a scene as a trainer for the 2 professional stars. One of whom was a marvelous actor, the other was a sort of hairdresser gone wrong. I stabbed the cameraman because when I lunged with my knife towards I had to lunge towards the camera, and the camera was supposed to pull back, and it didn't pull back, so I stabbed this cameraman in the stomach. And it was only a tiny little thing, there was no blood, just a little bit of fat. But I've done it to myself. I was in a play, and at the end of it, I was supposed to have been stabbed in the belly, and I knew I'd been stabbed. And I thought, I'm carried off stage upside down, so they'll see the blood weeping out of my belly. And in fact, all they could see was white fat. There was no blood whatsoever. But I stabbed the cameraman, and I also, forgive me again to say, there's a bit where I had to kick Mike Martin, who played not the hairdresser but the other one. Anyway, I kicked him in the balls. I wasn't supposed to, and he could not have been nicer.
I have to say you did some fantastic work, and I came all the way from New Zealand.
Wow.
Thank you.
I have a question. What was it like working on Doctor Who? You were on Doctor Who before.
Has
Wow.
anybody seen the Doctor Who fans?
Yes. Tom Baker.
Well, please don't clap. Nowadays they spend huge, they linked up with Disney or something, they spend huge amounts of money on scripts and sets. I've always said that I was in the worst Doctor Who episode ever made. Until somebody said to me, no, you're only in the second worst. Because I did my Doctor Who with Peter Davison, and the worst one is apparently a Colin Baker episode. I don't know what it is. I thought it was absolutely, I was glad to be in it, because everybody wants to be in it, because it's repeated, it's sold. And one time I made more money out of Doctor Who than anything else I've done in my acting career. That's
Wow.
films, TV, stage work, because money keeps on coming in from all over the world. But it was the worst, it had the worst script, the worst direction by a personal friend of mine who's godfather to my daughter. It had the worst acting, the most dreadful set, the worst set of monsters. I mean, it was a disaster from beginning to end. And I still get paid, so I'm glad I did it. But thank you for the applause. I hope out of sympathy rather than.
We got time for one more question.
It's so
if anybody has
funny.
one more question, we'd love to have that. Right there.
Awesome.
And before we get the question, thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you very much for sort of staying on and sort of doing it. Hope you'll be in church tomorrow and you'll celebrate Halloween in the same sensible way.
Nice to
Absolutely.
meet you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. You mentioned the pace that these Italian film crews worked at, and I know that sometimes they didn't even shoot sound live. I was just curious, was that the case on the films that you were making as well?
They shot it all live, but it was all edited afterwards. So I had to go back to Rome, and everyone had to go back to Rome to re-record what they did. I am told I wasn't in any of the scenes with her, but that the Greek actress did her stuff in Greek. I don't know whether it's true. But I do know that before I went there, when they made these films, they just said to the actors, we don't want the dialogue. Count. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then, because they knew so few people were going to see it in Italy. Most people were going to see these all over the world. So the dialogue would have to be changed into all these different languages. So, and they got away. I mean, that is a genuine thing that happened in Italian film. I mean, it didn't happen in ours. But when it was Survivors, one of the reasons why it was successful was my voice was dubbed by a man who had the deepest voice you've ever heard. And I would think that was half the success of it.
And is it frustrating when someone else may be dubbing in your performance, or am I overthinking it? And if you're redubbing your own performance, is that hard, or is that all in a day's work as an actor?
I don't like dubbing, and I don't think I'm very good at it. I just did a small film because there used to be a film company called Amicus Films.
Oh, yeah.
They've now reset up again in a town called Mcculloch in Scotland. And Amicus make films there, and a smaller company called Hex. I did the same studios. I did a film called Hex. So this is my mind going in. Where did we start off with? Because I've forgotten.
Dubbing.
What?
Dubbing?
Dubbing.
Just dubbing.
Oh yeah, just sort of doing it. I spent 2 days filming, and my voice wasn't right. And I was embarrassed, and I know it's not good enough. And then on the last day, I didn't have to do anything. They said, "Would you record a poem?" And my voice came back in full flow with depth and variety and the right tone and tone, which I couldn't produce doing this film. So I hate doing any sort of dubbing, and I prefer them to do it all on set there and keep it to the standard.
Very
Thank you.
good. Very
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mcculloch,
Thank you.
Wow.
have you back to his table.